You are listening to a Sustainable World Radio podcast. Sustainable World Radio brings you in-depth interviews, news, and commentary about positive solutions to environmental challenges. Solutions that adhere to the permaculture ethics of earth care, people care, fair share. Are you interested in learning more about permaculture projects around the globe? How to plant a food forest? Restorative design or ethnobotany? Then stay tuned for Sustainable World Radio. I'm your host and producer, Jill Cloutier. My guest today is Yolanda Suarez del Real. Yolanda is the Communications Director of Sanandi Farm, a 33-hectare organic, biodynamic permaculture farm located in Valle de Bravo, Mexico. Sanandi is Demeter certified and produces a wide variety of herbal medicinal products, and we'll learn all about that in this interview with Yolanda. And Yolanda is also a palliative care psychologist. Welcome to Sustainable World Radio, Yolanda. It's so good to have you here today.
Thank you, Jill. It's so nice to be with you today.
And Yolanda, let's start off with your work in palliative care. And in the past, I know you've worked with, which is end-of-life care, and for the National Cancer Institute in Mexico, providing integrative care for patients during their last weeks of life. And you say you witness firsthand some of the effects that agrochemicals and toxic pesticides can have on people's health. Can you tell us a bit about your observations in that work?
Yes, Jill, I was there for several years working at the hospital. I was trained in palliative care, and it was difficult to see all these people coming from marginalized communities, in fact, from the state of Mexico principally, and they would come with very hard advanced cancer problems, and it is known that many of these problems are caused because of chemicals and pesticides and things that we are aware now. So these people without knowledge come to these big hospitals, and it's difficult to have good preventive care. So this was my job for several years, and I realized how also the treatments in the cancer treatments were not enough to heal or not even to ease the pain of these people.
That must have been really hard.
Yes, I learned later, because I'm a psychologist, not a doctor, but later on that pesticides and agrochemicals, inhaling this causes a lot of problems with fertilization in men. They have many fertility problems, and also, in communities, rural communities, also what is very difficult to handle is that they consume a lot of smoke from their cooking, and there's also a lot of lung cancer because of that. Our topic about agrochemicals and pesticides is very clear that it's causing so many problems in so many levels that we can't imagine, and we don't even know, because we cannot track back what caused. But all these chronic diseases that we have, it's caused by all these habits that we have, that we would have to change radically in order to the next generations to be healthier than we are, because I think we have caused the damage, and we have to reverse this damage by regenerating the soil and, all the pollution, all the problems the planet has.
I know that after you met Dr. Dieter, and I hope I'm pronouncing all your names right, I apologize in advance.
No.
He's one of the co-founders of Sanandi Farm, and that you actually changed your work focus and deciding instead, as you put it, to work with the beginning of life, the soil, as opposed to the end of life. So can you tell us a bit about what you mean by soil being the beginning of life?
Yes, of course. I was working at the hospital while Dr. Dieter would invite me to establish this foundation, to form this foundation And he would say, I know it's important, your job at the end of life, but why don't we just focus on the beginning of life? And the soil is, most of our problems today are due to nutritious facts, so malnutrition. And in Mexico, we have this big, huge problem of malnutrition. So the soil, good cultures give us the nutrients we need, and many of the problems are due to this, are caused because of this. So this is the beginning, and Dr. Demeter always says that the agriculture would have to give his hand to the doctor. Now, medical system, it doesn't take into account nutrition facts. And now it's much into health practitioners' hands, all about nutrition. And I think we have to turn to the regeneration of the soil to really help restore the health of the soil and the health of the human beings.
And in the state of Mexico, where Sanandi Farm is located, I believe, what is the prevalent type of agriculture currently being practiced, and how does that differ from the traditional agriculture of the area?
In this area before, there used to be, and still there is many potato cultures, monocultures, due to this big, Coca-Cola company that they just rent the land, and they just spoil the land for 3 years, having all these monocultures of potato that requires a lot of pesticides and agrochemicals. It's terrible, because then the peasants, the people, the farmers, they just receive afterwards a soil that is completely burnt and with no more use. So what happened in Sanandi's farm is that Demeter and his brother and his mother, they bought this great place. But it's beautiful to have people thinking about regenerating the soil. Just acquire land to be able to heal this soil as to heal human beings. And what they did is, for more than 5 years, is just to restore the soil in order to be able to cultivate in an organic way and then in a biodynamic way. Sanandi's farm is a biodynamic farm that has its 3 parts that it's always needed in a biodynamic farm, which is the woods part. Most of the hectares are the woods that stay intact. Then there's this part of the animals, and then where the cows are, and they have a mule, and they have goats, and also hens, And also here, and the most important part, are the medicinal plants that are cultivated in a 3-hectare area. And it's beautiful to see how a person and his team can achieve this tremendous task, that is knowing exactly the seeds that are their origins and the final herbal remedy that Dr. Demeter has for soothing and healing some diseases.
Yolanda, it sounds like you feel that agriculture is a viable response to the health crisis that you were telling me about that's happening in Mexico right now.
Definitely, Jill. We think it's the only response, or the most, and it's easy to see. It is what we eat that has let us come to this stage of sickness that we're in. And this real project, it's about salutogenic. It's salutogenesis. It's the word for the big picture of a problem that has many components. It's not only that, but many other components that has to do with our souls and minds. So it is definitely one of the main responses, or the main the main concerns about health is also the sickness of the soil. That is why it is so important to pay attention to what the conditions of agriculture, how we cultivate and not have many monocultures, not have monocultures at all. Biodiversity is the clue to a good health.
Yes, and that's what really struck me about the farm is it sounds like one of the guiding principles of Sanandi Farm is that nature is alive, nature's sentient, and fertility is at the core of nature.
Yes.
Let's talk a bit about when the brothers started the farm. They used permaculture principles and methods. This was in 1998. And then, like you said, they discovered biodynamics and started practicing and using those methods. And I'm curious how the land responded to these land management practices and ideals, and what changes were evident in the land.
Well, many changes. Even from the color of the soil. You can tell by the pictures. When I came into Sanandi, it was already done all the hard work. It's continuous, but I know that I was not there from the very beginning, but I can tell from pictures the change is amazing. We have aerial pictures how it was so devastated, and now the soil, it's so amazing to see all these animals, insects coming back. You can't imagine the colorfulness of all these insects that you never thought you would be watching these insects coming back, or different species of animals are there, and it's wonderful to see all this and to be a witness of how cooperating with nature can lead you to such a wonderful place.
And can you describe the farm to our listeners so they get an idea? We can imagine what it looks like there. I know there's woods, and I think you do have a video on your website as well.
Yes, there's an aerial video there, and also there's a video from the process of the products, of the remedies, the herbal remedies. It's a beautiful place to be at. Once I have to tell you a story about a woman who was working with us for a time, and the first time she went to the farm, she said to me, "Yolanda, when did you die?" I didn't catch really the question in the beginning, but then she said, "Yes, this is paradise." When did you die? And really, it's such a wonderful place that I can't. It's difficult to describe. People when they come, they say, "You never told me how beautiful it is," and it's difficult. You have to be there, and you're all invited, and we visits and people coming. It's well known around the world now. I would say it's like a tale, a beautiful tale, because you can walk around and everything is so gorgeous that I always say that with whatever life being is there, you would like to be one of them, because it's there you're joyful in there.
So nature definitely is responding to the regeneration that's happening there.
Sure. It has been for a long time. I think 10 years, Dr. Demeter he can now say that for 10 years he has his seeds. He's working on a bank seed. The seeds that he has are really free of everything. They're really biodynamic. So we can tell for sure that almost all of his remedies are prepared with much care, but also the quality of the seeds, it's great. It's incredible. So yes, Jill.
It sounds amazing. And so I wanted to talk a bit about some of the unique things and unique qualities of the farm. One of them is that your crops are fed by spring water. And I wanted to hear a bit about the importance of water on the farm.
Well, water is important for life. So And, in Mexico, we have many problems with pollution. And I think all the planet is living this problem. So we are fortunate to have this spring water. It's like on the hill. So all the water coming to Sanandi's farm is completely clean, pure, and it's incredible to watch the stream going through the farm, and it's crystal clear. And without this water, there would be no possibility of to have this quality all the life in the farm.
So it's really important for the vitality of the crops.
I think it's the most important thing. Above all, water is needed, and clean water, crystal clean water, is a blessing, I think.
And another thing that I thought was really interesting was biodiversity is key on Sanandi. And you have livestock, you have a wormery, you have bees. And our listeners, I think, would love to hear about your wormery and how the worms and their compost, their vermicompost, are used on the farm. And maybe tell us a bit about why on-site fertility is so important.
The Wormery, we call it the Palace of the Worms. It's a beautiful place. It's a kind of canals where the worms, the red Californian worms, Aristotle said that the worms were the intestines of the soil of the earth. So it's very, very important because it's the beginning of life. If you have good humus, then you will have good cultures. They feed the worms the greens from the farm, and then they they make a trick on them because they feed them so that they come up, and then they trap them with a net just to put them aside in the other place or channel that we have. Then they do work all day long, they say, and night long. They say they are alchemists. Then we have the humus, the rich humus, just to nurture all the soil or all the plants in the farm. During the year, we can get even up to 23, 25 tons of humus to have during the year, to have all humus nurture the soil.
That's very impressive.
Yes, it's only for internal use. Many people ask us to sell some humus, but we don't sell humus. It's only for us. We're selfish on humus.
The humus is only for the humans on Sanandi. No, not the human. Well, eventually the humans, for the soil first. Oh, and that's something we talked about in a previous conversation, is really how important it is to have that on-site fertility and not to have to bring in a lot of materials and that can be expensive to fertilize your land.
Yes, Dr. Demeter is an integrative medical doctor, and he also works the same way with the soil and the land. What he does is he integrates also permaculture from biomolison. He uses bokashi, which is a kind of compost that has melasse. And from Michoacan state, near the state of Mexico, he brings like minerals from rocks that are also put into the soil for a better nutrition.
So it sounds like a multi-pronged approach with different ways of achieving fertility.
Sure. And these all biodynamic preparations, all these preparations for the plants according to the seasonal cycles. So it's a very multi-integrative kind of agriculture.
And I would imagine, too, that it actually saves you money instead of having to buy fertilizers produced somewhere else.
Oh, yes, somehow it does. But on the other hand, also biodynamic farming is a little expensive because it's a lot of man labor, and specific no ingredients that you need to have to do the preparations, and it's time taking, time consuming, but it's all so good to the soil that it's worth it.
Bees are also very important on the farm, and I know that Sanandi has engaged in rescue efforts to save native Mexican bees. And I'm curious if you could tell us a bit about how bees are your valuable allies on the farm, and then tell us about the rescue effort and how it's going.
This is one of the core activities in the farm. It's amazing to go through the farm, walking by, and you find every now and then bees from different species. And yes, this is really important. When we have the visits in the farm, and as we make the trail through different parts of the farm, Dieter always says how bees are important in like a bio indicator of biodiversity, and how even Einstein said that once bees fall, we humans have 4 years to be in this planet, because they are and they're such beautiful animals and insects that we do not know much about how they work, but they do work, and they give us this beautiful and special nutrient, which is the honey. I would like, Jill, if you... There is this poet, Spanish poet, Garcia Lorca, Federico Garcia Lorca, and he has a very special little part I could tell you about the bees. In a very poetic way, he traduces what bees give us.
That would be wonderful, yes.
So he said, honey is the epic of love, the materialization of the infinite, the soul and the blood of flowers condensed through the spirit of others. Bees are so important that Dr. Dieter and all the team are working hard on trying to keep them the best of ways. So there are different kinds of species native to Mexico and from Yucatan, most of all, and also other places from Mexico. These are the bees that don't have a sting, Melipona fasciata. They don't have a sting. There are some bees that look like small flies. And I say, how come it doesn't seem to be a bee? But we know they're bees because they give their so special honey. So we have this Melipona fasciata, and there's another one, Nanotrigona perilampoides. They are both in risk of extinction. We are doing this work on this to try to it's a little place and not so many, but it's a start to do this work. So we house 4 types of native bees in Sanandi's farm, which are these both that I mentioned, and also another that is Partamona bilineata and Scaptotrigona mexicana. Those are bound from Mexico, all of them, and it's a pleasure to have these special beings in the farm.
Oh, and that poem was just beautiful.
Yes. I don't know, infinite, you say, no? The materialization of the infinite. Bees, there are incredible videos about bees, apicultures, these people that keep bees. It's a huge problem in the planet. They're dying because of pesticides and agrochemicals. So what we try to do in the farm, and Dr. Dieter is always looking for the kind of flower they like. And he tries to cultivate these flowers that are so beautiful also.
It's wonderful. And I know that you use the honey that these bees produce in many of your medicinal products. And can you tell us a bit about the honey that is produced on the farm?
Sure. As you know, there's an issue about harvesting much honey because we want not to disturb the bees a lot. So they are fed with their own honey in the winter But the one we harvest is used in this line of herbal honeys, and it's a natural honey. It's a perfect vehicle for these herbal extracts to put in, and depending on what he wants to heal, if it's a digestive honey or it's respiratory honey, there are 5 different ones, and it's like a soft medicine. He uses it for children most of all, because the same extracts, he uses them in another line of herbal extracts with mezcal, with agave. So the honey is more directed to children, and the other extracts for adults because they have the mezcal, right?
Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about that plant in just a bit.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to it. So another aspect of Sanandi's philosophy and practice is seed integrity. And you did mention the seed bank. And I'm just curious why you chose not to use genetically modified seeds on your farm.
There's no way to use modified genetic seeds when you are conscious about or willing to heal the soil. Right? This is amazing what we are doing in manipulating seeds. Like if we knew what the outcome will be, why not use what nature gives us? So simple and yet so incredibly powerful and full of potential and full of life. So human beings shouldn't be, I think, this is my opinion, but I think human beings shouldn't be playing God. It's manipulating seeds and things that there's no need to. On the contrary, we should stick to what nature simply gives us with such wisdom.
What really concerns me about genetically modified crops are the large amounts of herbicide and that are applied on them. And that's, one reason that I try and avoid those food produced.
Definitely. It's incredible to see how people that apply all these pesticides and agrochemicals have to cover themselves with, like if they were going to the moon, because they cannot inhale what they're applying, and that's totally a nonsense in my point of view and many others. So of course that's the main reason. By any means, we are not using pesticides or agrochemicals in organic or biodynamic farming. I will sometimes share with you a song we have acquired in the communities. I know maybe we'll talk about the foundation itself, but there's this beautiful song written by the music teacher. It talks about healing the water. And it's a problem of education and consciousness about healing all the components of our beautiful planet that we have to take care of. We don't have much time, Jill. Not for this podcast, not for this planet. I mean, we don't have that much time. We have, and as we have said before, we have to really work on this, trying to heal the planet. We won't see the results, at least my generation and others won't see the results. We have to do something for the sake of our children and the next generations, right?
Yes, and that's one thing, Sanandi, it sounds like it's very future focused.
We try to. Yes, we try to, and it's difficult, but we try to, because it's an ongoing work, an ongoing labor, and we have to, like Dr. Dieter says, do you have anything else to work on? Because I don't see another response to all what we are living. And I think there are many, many beautiful people and groups working hard to solve some of the problems we have. So we have to just shake hands and no, and like you and me and here with this podcast at the Sustainable World Radio Station, and these contacts, I think there are for good relations and just keep being together to try to do something for our planet.
Yes, and it's really all hands on deck, and everyone is needed, and everyone has something to offer. And that's what's so exciting. And it's daunting, but it is exciting because we're all needed to regenerate the planet.
Yeah.
And so at Sanandi, biodiversity, as we've said, is quite important, not only with the animals. You're also growing quite a large number of plants and fungi and mycorrhizal fungi and medicinal mushrooms. Can you tell our listeners about a few of your favorite plants on the farm?
Oh, yes. Well, this is the plant that it's the Mexican Giant Hyssop. We call it Agastache mexicana, and it's a beautiful flower. It's a purple flower. In the web page, you can see the flower bloomings in some of the photos there. It has been used in the Mexican tradition to relieve many problems. Dr. Demeter says that if doctors in Mexico knew this plant, it would be like gastro doctors, bowel doctors, would heal a lot of the problems we women have, like nervous colitis and things like that. But people use it in Mexico long time ago for syndromes such as, what is good at? Susto, we call it the susto, that's a state of fear. And for anxiety, and it's used for sleep aid, and it has many properties. And it's also known for spasmolytic activities. It's a beautiful plant that we like very much. There's also, it comes in different colors. It blooms in white, bluish color, and purple. And the white one and the blue one are also had a problem of risk of extinction. So he tries to have all these colors and combines them for his remedies. We have it in the soothing sleep tea and in the digestive tea because it has properties in both of these systems. So that's one of the plants I like the most. And it comes, also we have it in infusion. We have these loose leaf tea blends, and in the digestive and the infusion to ease sleep, it's good. It's very good.
What part of the plant is used for the medicine?
The flower, and also a little bit of the stem, but most is the flower.
It sounds beautiful, and I wonder if it would grow in California.
I bet it does. You know what? I have to tell you something about Sanandi's farm, because they always ask him, why did you choose this place? And Sanandi's farm is settled in Cerro Gordo, I said. And Cerro Gordo means fat hill. So Dieter says that when he was little, they would call him Gordo. That means like fatty or something like that. So when he went there, because they were searching in several places of Mexico, nearby Mexico City. And he says, no, when I heard about Cerro Gordo, I said, this is the place. But in fact, it's a very high place. And also it rains a lot. And it can get very cold during the winter. We have frosts during the winter. But something beautiful about plants, and what I've learned from Dr. Demeter, is that it's like children. Once they go through a disease or a heavy, I don't know, weather problem or whatever, if they finally make it, they took out all their energy or their potential. And then you have as a result a beautiful, powering flower. So this is an incredible thing that happens here, that many times some are lost, but the ones that finally make it are such good, beautiful plants.
With potent medicine, I would think.
Exactly. And biodynamic farming gives you such quality plants. I mean, such powerful. It's really the components, the oils are more concentrated, and they give you very, very nice results.
Tell us a bit if there's any other plants that you would like to talk about, different medicinal plants.
We have also I like it very much, the flavor of the Verbena limon, which is the cedron. We call it cedron. Mm-hmm. That's a lemon verbena, you say?
I love that plant.
Well, you just touch it and it's smell, it's so powerful, so beautiful, but yet very soft. So it's also for digestive problems, and and people like it very much only as an infusion because it's for its smell, and it heals digestive problems. It also good for halitosis, you say in English. So it's a very loved plant in the farm. Demeter uses also a lot of the Achillea millefolium, and this comes very much from anthroposophic medicine, and it heals. That's the millenrama. That's Achillea millefolium. It's
Yarrow.
Yarrow.
Yes.
That's Yarrow. It's very good for many for women's problems, and I think was one of the favorite of Rudolf Steiner, the founder of anthroposophy. Imagine there are like more than 100 medicinal plants in Rancho La Paz, in Sanandi's farm. So it's incredible all the things you see blooming there that are great to see. And also, I don't know if we will talk about this agave that he uses for extracts.
Yes, that was one of my questions. Yes, I would love to hear about that.
This is what he has found is that mezcal, that comes from the agave. It's an alcohol that maintains the essential oils at a good level, and there's when you dry out with alcohol, it doesn't dry a lot. It's a very good vehicle for the extracts. So he found this organic. In Oaxaca, there's this guy, Don Ignacio. He really is into preserving the process of creating the agave. He's also learning about biodynamic, and he's about to be certified in Demeter, the Demeter certification of biodynamic farming. He's being trained by us and other people. Sanandi's Farm, because I haven't talked to you about the guy that works in Sanandi's Farm in the laboratory, which is from one of the communities around. And he's really an incredible man, that Masawa, from the indigenous group of Masawas that around. He's learned so much about biodynamic farming that he's now giving lessons or teaching these guys from Oaxaca how to become biodynamic, so that we have also the agave, the vehicle, under biodynamic standards. Right now is organic, but not biodynamic.
That's wonderful, and you did mention that the mezcal that you use in your tinctures or infusions is that, and you said it doesn't dry out. So does that mean it doesn't dry out mucous membranes in our body?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It suits. It's not only many people like it. Mm-hmm. Many people like Demeter's remedies because of the mezcal, but also for people that are intolerant to alcohol, there's a way to evaporate it, and so we just tell them to use warm water, and they can just use some drops and they will evaporate. But for most of the people, mezcal is also it's healing in the quantities allowed by your body.
In the drops, not the liters. No.
Exactly, the drops.
And you touched on this a bit, but I know that formulating, creating, and selling your medicinal herbal medicines is now a large part of what is happening on the farm. And can you tell us a little bit about the lab? I think it's your on-site apothecary, and I think you call it the heart of the farm.
Yes, there are 3 buildings that are used for the process of all these remedies. And also the cultures, right? From the cultures, depending on the line we're talking about, if we are talking about the teas, loose leaf tea blends, depending on, the plants are cut and they are dried in a dryer and at 35 degrees centigrade. It's a beautiful place to come in because it smells so good and it's warm. And so it takes like 3 days, 72 hours to dry out these plants so that they stay with the perfect humidity level and they still keep their properties. After that, they are packed in the tea bags, and that's for this line of products. But there are the herbal extracts that use the mezcal, the agave extract. Depending on the remedy, they are macerated, and we have these big mortars, Mexican, where we do the sauces with chile and everything. Of course, this is especially for these remedies, but we find out that these hard stone recipients, you can really smash. I don't know if you say that word.
Yes.
You really can smash the plants and bring the needed cut of the plant. It's very important to have copper in there because of its properties of conducing things and energy and everything. So it's always useful to have copper vessels. And this is where homeopathy is done. Some of the plants are passed by these copper vessels. And then it's biodynamic farming takes long time to do these dynamizations, and they do it in the lab. And then in the lab they have all the stuff to do the processing of the plants. They have to heat them with the extract, and then when they have all this ready, they are put into containers. These are the mother tinctures. And these containers, glass containers, go into also one of the main buildings, and we call it the heart of the farm because this is where they are well kept. It's a beautiful stone building that has, because of the stone, it keeps cold, and you don't need anything from electricity or whatever to keep it cool. The same place keeps it cool. And this is where they store all the tinctures and also the teas and also the mezcal. And this is the place where they have all these big glass vessels, and then they use it to fill up the little jars. We have the final product labeled and everything, and this is done all at the farm. Still in a very simple way, no machinery. There is no machinery. It's it's a Paracelsus laboratory because it is really nice to be there, and you just have to keep quiet and be very into what you are doing and very focused because it's qualities behind all this, and we try to stay like that almost all the time. It's a great, and you can see a video in the webpage about the process we follow.
That's wonderful. And I think everything's done by hand, right?
Everything is done by hand. And this is the point that we want to stay, but it's also It's difficult to take the decision because these are such good remedies that we would love everyone to have them because they're really good for many diseases to ease many problems of health.
We're getting close to the end of our time together today, Yolanda. So I wanted to touch briefly on the Peaceful Valley Foundation. And I think that the foundation, which is part of an offshoot of the farm, works with children and local farmers. And can you tell us a bit about this work and this foundation?
Sure. This foundation started in 2010. It was like we were seeking or we were looking for an organization that could hold all this social work that we wanted to do in the communities around Sanandi's farm. And we have 4 communities. We started in 4 communities. It has around 1,000 people in all. There are very small communities. And this project is beautiful because it has for me it's very ambitious in the sense that it has too many areas that they are taking into account. And this is a trine project about agriculture. In the base of the triangle, we have agriculture, we have education, and in the top we have health. So if we can do this like agriculture and education to get to a good health, that would have much sense. And this is what we have trying to do with different activities in the communities. It hasn't been easy at all. In fact, nowadays we have depended on donations and private donations and also federal donations. And it's never enough for all the work has to be done. This is why we are doing all this, selling the remedies to really support this social labor, this service that is so needed. We cannot, Sanandi is a beautiful place to be at. And as in the surroundings, we have marginalized communities that even though if we are in a place with water, they don't have tubed water, and basic needs are not attended for many of these people. So one of the activities we thought it would be great to have there as a hope for the children, it's music. And we started a project almost 7 years ago with music, with a choir for children. And believe me, no money for instruments. So we decided the voice was the best of instruments. So we started there, and this is where children and people have found some hope for all the difficulties they live in a daily life. And this is one of the activities for this education pillar of the project. Before we had teachers going, because education in Mexico is very deficient. It's incredible. We have students coming from primary school without real knowledge of reading and writing, and it's comprehension. But it has to do a lot with nutrition. So in the project, this is why one of our main concerns is the kids' nutrition. And we started a program with breakfast, nutritious breakfast with vegetables and fruits, and also organic eggs that were donated from a farm nearby. And we started that also 7 years ago. And for 5 years, continuously, we gave 350 daily breakfasts for children. We know this improved their health and also happiness because these are children that don't know many of the fruits we have in Mexico. Mexico is such a biodiversity country that it's incredible that sometimes people can't afford or can't even be able to know these fruits, and these little children will come so eagerly to grab fruits and vegetables for their meal. And it was a very nice, beautiful thing to do. But we ran out of money, and we decided we needed to work more on the productive project, which is selling these products in order to, in the future, have enough money to not just to give out these breakfasts. We need them to learn to go back to their lands and their soil and regenerate their soil and start again to cultivate their food. And I mean, the basic things like the milpa, milpa is what they used to do, our ancestors, and they would have corn, the Mexican corn, and also beans and quelites, which is a kind of spinach or greens that we used to grow a lot. So and it shouldn't be difficult to do this. It's just going back to where we were cultivating these things instead of having such a bad nutrition habits with Coke, and we call a soup a very instant soup that people eat a lot here. So we're trying to make a difference, but it's not easy at all because it has to do with changing habits, and that's not easy for human beings.
So really, it sounds like you're working on reintroducing more traditional ways of growing fruits and vegetables for the community.
Mm-hmm. It has to be local, also for ecology. And we have to also, because I think nature is so wise that it gives you what you need in the season you need it. And it's so incredible that we have forgotten, I think, what our people did in the past. We have to go back to that. And doesn't mean we have to go backwards. It's only just restore. They used to have, I have to tell you, a very, very good beverage before made out of the blue corn. And it's a fermentation with the blue corn. And they used to drink it. So we want to have back this drink, which would be like what we call now a probiotic.
What is the name of the drink?
Sende. It is called Sende, S-E-N-D-E. So we have the study. We have worked with a nice lady that does these studies to find out how we can recreate this beverage. And there are very few people who still do it here in the state of Mexico, because this was here. The Mazahuas did it. So we have to go back to this, but we need, funding and things. So we're trying our best to work in the productive project to be able to have all this in the future. We are, there's a poet, an American poet, Wendell Berry.
I love Wendell Berry. He's a great writer. He writes novels too, which are really good. Yeah.
Yes, he's a great poet, and he said something about in urgency patience. We need patience even if we are in an urgency, right? So this is what we're trying to do, Jill.
Yes, and that's when the Mexican hyssop will come in handy, right? Is it to give you patience from the anxiety?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yes.
Oh, well, yes. Is there anything else about the farm or foundation that you would like to share with listeners today?
I would like to tell you about this. This is the model was lacking a few years ago of an economical model. And Dieter was trying to find, once he bumps into a German lady, agronomist, that she was carrying and reading a book, The Economy of the Common Good, from Christian Felber. And he's an Austrian guy, and he has this, it's not a philosophy, he really has instruments that can measure what are your actions towards common good. And he is trying to reach the world and enterprises and just to make these actions possible. And it has to do with changing what is profit, competence to collaborating and common good. So it's incredible to have these sheets of paper that has these different values, no? Like human dignity, solidarity, and social justice, and environmental sustainability. And it has to do with your suppliers, the owners, and they work, the employees, how much you pay your employees, how much they work, how much dignity you're giving in their jobs, and all these things that are so important to really have these integrative approaches to make a real change in all senses. So we're trying to do this, to follow this model, which is between capitalism and socialism. This is what Christian Felber explains. It's easy because you can do like an internal test to see how your actions are going either to the economy of the common good or the other way. We have not created yet, but we're trying to.
So it's something to strive toward.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I'll put a link to that book or website on this interview.
You can find it either under Christian Felber or just the economy of the common good.
Okay, perfect. So Yolanda, I'd love to return full circle to what we were talking about in the beginning of the interview, is your work as a psychologist. And I'm curious, how does connecting with nature affect our health, our mental health and our health, in your opinion?
Oh, Jill, I think nature is we belong to nature. We come from nature. I think it's very important, even if we are not aware of that, our inner soul knows we belong there. So what I found in the work I did in palliative care with people at the end of life, I would be talking to them and asking them about their best or their to remember good experiences and they had before. And they always related to nature. These experiences, not one of them was not related to nature. When I went to the beach with my family, or when I went to the woods, even in the city, if we go to the park, I think that's really, really a very strong relation with nature. It has to do with all our lives. And there are some beautiful studies about how important nature is. And now, I know from hospitals that the rooms are facing in trees, at least a tree, because that heals really our soul and our bodies and our minds.
And do you have any advice, Yolanda, for listeners who desire more connection with nature or feel like they might live in a city, or any advice for people who want to regain that connection?
Yes, I think there's always a way to be close to nature. Even if you are at home in a building imagine Mexico City, there's always some way to have whatever plant. NASA came with a list of plants that can heal you and also help avoid a little pollution in the cities. I don't have it on hand, but I remember we went to buy all these plants and have them in our house, because I think it's very important too. And children should just touch the soil. It's so with their feet or with their hands is so connecting that maybe you cannot express it, but you will surely feel the difference when you breathe and are in nature or next to nature.
And when we spoke in our previous conversation, you mentioned that you traded in your medical vest for a pair of boots. And and are you happy with that decision? It sounds like you are.
Oh, yes. I loved my work in palliative care because I think it's beautiful to be with people that are living this planet. But also the beginning of life is very nurturing, and I'm so glad. I think it's a blessing for me, and I always say that I'm so fortunate to have found this project and this place so close and yet so far for so many years. But it's been 10 years that I've been fully working in Sanandi, and I really appreciate the opportunity life has given me, and also Dr. Demeter and all the team. So it's so great to be here.
For people who want to learn more about Sanandi and your products and foundation, where can they find you online?
We have the Sanandi webpage, sanandi.com, and there you can find all the information. We will be having webinars soon, every month, I think, and there you can find all the information about Sanandi.
Oh, that's wonderful. And Yolanda, it's been great to have you here on the show, and I'm curious if there's anything that I didn't ask that you would want to share with listeners today.
Oh, Jill, I'm so glad. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you and all the audience. But I think that's it. Just we'll wait for you in Sanandi.
That sounds wonderful. I would love to visit. And thank you so much. And thank you for your wonderful work in healing the earth in Mexico.
Thank you, Jill, for all the job you do also in terms of healing this planet. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You've been listening to a Sustainable World Radio podcast. You can find us online at sustainableworldradio.com and also on iTunes. For more information about permaculture and ecology, visit the Sustainable World Media YouTube channel, where you'll find videos about permaculture, aquaponics, organic gardening, rainwater harvesting, and much, much more. Sustainable World Radio is a listener-supported program. If you like what we do, please consider making a donation to the show. I'm your host and producer, Jill Cloutier, and thank you so much for listening.